Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? Hello, I'm just going to wait for a few of you to jump in. Hey, Coach Ella, some of our ambassadors have already begun to jump on. How is everybody doing? I am so excited about tonight. Welcome to Talk About You. This is a platform where we talk about you and uterine fibroid embolization and all of the questions we try to answer about issues and topics around and surrounding fibroids and fibroid disease and some of the challenges that many of us have faced having fibroid disease. And of course, we have solutions. And so I'm so excited to be here tonight to be able to share with you. Oh my God, this lineup that we have tonight is going to really be so helpful to each of you. We have two very special people waiting in our chat room, or waiting in our green room, our virtual green room, to come in. And I'm really excited to have one of our doctors from the USA Fibroid Center, Dr. Shiloh. I love the fact that he affectionately calls himself Dr. UFE. He is so amazing, and he is going to be joining us tonight. And he's going to be answering many of your questions. How does fibroids developed? You know, some of the solutions that are offered, and some of the symptoms that you should be looking for if you are a person who is suffering with fibroids, or if you think you have fibroids. And so I'm excited to be able to have Dr. Shiloh. That's your doctor. Yay, yay, yay. And so while we're waiting for Dr. Shiloh and our wonderful guests to come in, where are you guys chiming in from? I know that there's quite a bit of you on here tonight. I do see Shirley. I know, I can't wait. I just can't wait. I'm so very excited. And I think I see someone coming into, that is Dr. Shiloh. And I am so happy. I think he's jumping on in. He is coming on in. So we want to make sure, hello, we want to make sure that we welcome him tonight. He is so amazing. Hello, Dr. Shiloh. Welcome.
How are you tonight? Sorry, I'm trying to get my camera to work right, but thank you.
Kind of gets weird after we get, I don't know what it's going to do when we get three, but we'll work with it. We'll definitely work with it. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for doing this. I can't tell you how many women I see on a daily basis that tell me that the Instagram is what affected them to come in and see. So I told Shay this thing last time I saw her. You guys are doing a fantastic job. I mean, I can't tell you how many women have literally just said, I saw you on Instagram. And when I say you, I'm talking about the ambassadors. And so you're literally touching people on a daily basis, individually, one by one, helping one person at a time, which is pretty amazing.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. It clearly takes a village to be able to spread the message of hope in any occasion. And I think even today, my esthetician called me. She had a woman in her chair who has an appointment on Friday to talk about having a hysterectomy. And my esthetician said, before I even give you this facial, we have to call Kim Lee because she has a lab tonight. And I think she's on here tonight. She said, I'm challenging you not to get that hysterectomy and to chime into the USA Fibroid Center's page tonight, because I think they're going to have some answers for you. And I'm just so grateful that tonight we're actually talking to the doctor.
Well, I hope to help, and I'm looking forward, hopefully, Elsa here as well, that I know we expect her here as well to chime in on some of her experiences.
Yeah, I'm waiting for her to come in. She said that she requested, but I don't have any requests from her, so I can't bring her in, and my phone is going crazy. So I want to grab my iPad. And listen, Elsa, I think you're on here because I see you commenting. Can you try to request one more time, because there's nothing in the request from you? I know you said, I know you're here, but inside of, I want you to press that plus button at the bottom of your screen just one more time. I know you're here, but you're not in the chat. So if you could just press the plus button one more time, I'd appreciate it, and then I'll get you in. I'm going to grab my iPad, Dr. Shiloh, because I hear my phone is going off. It's going crazy, Dr. Shiloh.
Yeah, there's a lot of excited people here, I guess.
Direct. All right. Cheryl's texting me, and I want to make sure that we got everybody. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, guys. This is what happens when you do live TV. This is what, but we do have some great things in store for you guys tonight, and I do think we have Elsa. I think she's coming in. There she is.
Hey, I made it. I was battling to get in.
That there was nothing. It's every time I kept pressing the button, it kept saying there's no one live waiting to come in. I'm like, okay. So
It's okay. We got it. Yeah.
but welcome tonight, and thank you so much for joining us and
Thank you.
part of the family. And we are so happy to have you. The hearts are just floating through, and people are so glad that you're here to tell your story. I want to do my intro and listen.
Okay.
I never wear my glasses, okay, because I'm so vain, okay. But
They're good looking glasses though.
it is so small, I can't read it, but I do think that it is necessary for people to know who we have in our presence, because you just
Thank you.
very special. And I think everyone needs to know that not only are you a multi-award-winning journalist, but you're also a TV host, a radio host, and a podcaster who built a reputation for being fearless. And I love that about you, because I think that quality is so needed when you are dealing with
Yes.
of your health and making decisions. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I also want to mention that you are unconstrained and unbothered. I love that part of your bio. It's like, listen,
100.
okay, I bothered by bad news I may have gotten this fibroid diagnosis, and this is what you did about it. You said you are genuine, hilarious, and you always tell it like it is, and no matter what the topic is, she has done it all. And I love this about you. You are hosting Midday Maryland, a daily lifestyle television show on WMAR2 ABC in Baltimore. And are so happy to have you. You are not only co-hosting, but you're co-producing. So you're a bad chick, okay?
Thank you.
So making the moves, and I really respect that. And the show is called Eden and Elsa. It's a podcast. So welcome to you. Welcome to Talk About You, where we're talking about FE. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that intro. And I love your glasses, by the way. You should wear them more. So there you go.
You know, it's the glare that's taken away from the eyeshadow. But that's how we talk about. We're here to talk about UFE, and we're here to talk about fibroids and fibroid embolization. And I want to properly introduce Dr. Shiloh. I did a mini intro of him a little bit earlier, but I want everyone that's on here to know exactly who we have in our presence. We do have a board certified both in radiology and interventional radiology. IR, and Dr. Shiloh holds a fellowship in the Society of Interventional Radiology, a distinction granted to only 10%, y'all. 10%, y'all. We got some top certified doctors in our network. It is only granted to only 10% of all doctors in his field. He is a leading expert in fibroid care and has performed hundreds, y'all, not just a couple, hundreds of successful UFE procedures. And we welcome, you can tap the hearts. I think that is the appropriate way to welcome him. I wish we could give you a standing ovation, Dr. Shiloh, because I know that you have helped to remedy and heal so many women. I know you found your purpose. I know that you feel good when you go to sleep at night, just ensuring that women are their absolute best, and women like Elsa, who are bosses, can do what they do with excellence and with freedom. Welcome to the both of you. We're going to jump right on in tonight. I think that this is such a great cast of people that we have in our presence. And I want to start with you, Elsa, and I'd like to thank you, of course, for coming, but I want you to share your story with us, because I think that it's very important that people know exactly what happened. I know you're a workaholic because you have accomplishments. I know what you do because I work in the industry, but exactly when you first noticed your symptoms, what those felt like, and how old were you?
So throughout my life, my periods were always really bad. And my mother and my aunt had endometriosis. So I knew what that was when I was very young, maybe like middle school. So immediately when my cycle started around middle school, I would miss school. it was just really, really bad, and it progressed. And so when I would go to doctors, they would say things like, is your flow heavy, or is your period pain intense? And for me, especially for many Black women, our baseline is so high. We're so used to dealing with really bad cramps and really heavy flow and all of that. So I didn't even really know how to fully convey how bad it was because I had normalized it, and I had normalized it for so long. So fast forward, I'm how old was I about this time? Maybe about 31.
Okay.
I had gone to a gynecologist, and I'm sorry.
You have been dealing with heavy periods since the time you had a menstrual, up and
Yes, yes,
suffering.
and progressively got worse. But the issue that I had is that when I was about 31, I had moved to this area, and I find a gynecologist that was, just in my insurance. And I remember feeling like I was always rushed, which I feel like they do a lot with women in general, but Black women specifically. The doctor was fine enough, but she would always see me for like 30 seconds and just be on her way. And I was like, I don't feel good with this doctor. Let me switch. When I switched doctors, within 6 months of leaving this doctor who I had seen for the last couple of years, that doctor said to me, "How long have you had fibroids?" And I said, "I don't have fibroids. What are you talking about?" She was like, "You most certainly do." Which means that the doctor who had just seen me 6 months before, and they were very big fibroids, that did not even convey them to me because it was just so standard. She sees it all the time with Black women. Mine were so large that my doctor told me that it would be hard to conceive. And if I was able to conceive, I might not be able to carry to term.
Wow.
Fortunately, that was not the case. I was able to conceive my daughter, but after I had my daughter, they grew and grew and grew until recently I saw Dr. Shiloh about a year ago now. It was May. Life changing. I did not know that I could go about my day without worrying about where's the bathroom? Where am I going to be able to, make sure that I'm okay, that I don't have any sort of period accidents, where I wasn't losing days out of my life because I have to be in bed with cramps when I have to be on TV, and it was really, really, it got to the point that it was debilitating. And the only options that were given to me before I found out about UFE were get a hysterectomy. Why? Or do a very invasive surgery. And I was just getting divorced, and I was like, I don't know what the future holds. So I want to preserve my fertility if I choose to have another child. I don't think so, but who knows? And these were all the concerns that I had that Dr. Shiloh walked me through from beginning to end. So that's sort of my story in a nutshell. But it was a long one. You see, it started when I was 14 and took me all the way to 41. So there we go.
So tell us what some of your symptoms were, because I think that's very important.
Yes.
Suffered for a very long time in silence, but what did those symptoms look like?
Very, very strong cramping, um, fatigue, a lot of fatigue. And then when you're feeling like that, that leads to, I already deal with seasonal depression. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, your mood, of course, takes a hit as well. Bloating, definitely. All of those things that you would imagine. But the pain was really, it was severe. And not just during the cycle, but at least a week, week and a half before the cycle, which means that half of your month, every single month, you're in pain or, worried about your clothing, or it was really just, you only get what, 2 weeks of the month to enjoy? That's no way to live.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm so sorry that you dealt with that so long. I want to jump right in with Dr. Shiloh because I want him to help us to understand from a doctor's perspective why it's so important to notice symptoms early.
I mean, this is a great question, and I think it points to something that Elsa said, which is that sadly, women and I think women of color, and I hate to say it this way, they have their problems are underscored. addressed properly. They complain for a long period of time, or they say things about it and they're just said, well, that's just, you have to live. And I see it every day, sadly, because we do quality of life questionnaires on all patients, and we ask them to scale on a 1 through 5 scale, like how dramatically is your period affecting your life in various ways, 1 being not at all, 5 being tremendously. And inevitably, many women are 5s all the way down, up and down the board. And you can really see, we can talk about the science of it all and, various treatments and how we do them and all. But really what that quality of life questionnaire has taught is really how dramatically the fibroid disease affects women, and how sadly it is when you ask them, how long have you been suffering this way, and hearing 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And so I know that what's important is to recognize that you have a problem, to speak about it. And that's one of the powerful things that you guys are doing, which is so great, is bringing this issue to light, allowing people to hear that other women are suffering from this problem and that they're not alone. And this is something that can be addressed as long as you find the right doctors to listen to you and to understand that this is a problem that you're having and that there is a solution, that it doesn't require, removing your uterus, which is a big. And so I think it's super important to just say, listen, I have a concern, and until you find the right person to address your concern, you just keep talking. I tell every woman, you have to be your own best advocate. And in fact, women do an amazing job of taking care of other people, their family members, their parents, their children. And they have to say, you know what, enough is enough. I take care of myself first, care of other people. And so it is important to just, keep fighting for yourself and getting your needs addressed. And that's what Elsa did, and others like her have done. And it's a very powerful thing when you can take control like that.
I totally agree. And I do want to talk about, I have 2 questions for you, Dr. Shiloh. I think that this one is that I know that there are some common concerns about symptoms that you have when you first diagnose a woman with fibroids. I want you to tell us what those concerns are, because I'm sure that Elsa, she had some great concerns when she found out she had fibroids and was told she wouldn't be able to conceive. Tell us about those concerns that you have, Dr. Shiloh. Then we'll get to Elsa and have her to answer how she felt when she found out that she had fibroids, unbeknownst to her.
Well, when someone comes to me and has fibroids, we have sort of sometimes a typical patient who's in their mid-40s, who's had 2 or 3 kids, and then there really are very few concerns. We tell them, look, we do an evaluation, sure that they have fibroids and not some other type of problem. Sometimes women have more than one problem, and it's very important to be very thorough. So we are thorough, make sure there's nothing else going on. And if there isn't, and we just have fibroids to deal with, then we can discuss how we treat them, which is our hands in a very minimally invasive way, usually through the wrist here, in an procedure that takes, an hour or less, and they walk in and out of. With younger women, and also, it's postmenopausal women, it does bring up other concerns. Younger women who want to retain their fertility, we have to bring up that and discuss it, talk to them about how this might impact that. And then with women who are postmenopausal, if they're bleeding, we have to make sure they don't have cancer, which, it's we want to talk about. However, it's important, if they're not everything's a fibroid. So the key is to keep an open mind. I do what I think is the most important thing, which is to spend half an hour sitting and talking and listening and hearing the story, and then and only then going over the imaging, the ultrasound, MRI, whatever is there, and then making a plan. But if you listen to someone and you take a careful history, you can get a better understanding about what their needs are, what is fibroid specific to them, and if there are any other issues that we need to potentially address before.
Thank you for that information. There are so many questions that are coming through our live chat asking, am I able to conceive? Am I going to have this for the rest of my life? Will it return? And I think that Dr. Shiloh says something very important that I think you guys need to take note of, and that is that it's important to sit down and have the conversation with your doctor. We do have some doctors that are here on staff that are waiting and available. Listen, I don't know how many doctors you can call at 7:24 Eastern Standard Time and have this kind of in-depth conversation. So again, I can't thank you enough, because there are some of your biggest fans on here who are professing their appreciation for what you have done to keep them healthy. And so I want to make sure that everyone that is watching, that you are dialing the number at the bottom of the screen is 833-609-1109. Again, that's 833-609-1109. This is our hotline number where you can call. You can schedule an appointment with one of our doctors. If you're not local to our network, you can do a telehealth consultation, and we can answer all your questions and make sure that you are getting the treatment that you deserve. Now, Elsa, I want you to talk to us a little bit about how you felt when you found out you had these fibroids. I mean, what was going through your mind?
Well, I mean, I was devastated. I was a newlywed and I was excited about starting a family. And within what, like 6 months of getting married, I'm told this news. And so my husband at the time was great and was like, I married you for you. If we have kids as a bonus. So that took the pressure off. But at the same time, that's what I
think we're losing Elsa. So let's see if it.
Oh, sorry. I think we
Elsa,
had a glitch. Can you ask me that again?
I was asking you how you felt, and I think you had begun to talk about how the pressure was kind of relieved because your husband didn't put he said he loved you just for you, which I think is fantastic, because that can be very devastating for any woman to think that I'm not going to be able to give my husband a child. So
Right.
other feelings that you had, were you afraid, or were you thinking, I mean, what were you thinking?
I was afraid. I was disappointed. I was mad. I was mad because I had always stayed on top of my health. I never missed any annual exams. I had always gone to my gynecologist like clockwork, and I was mad that I was told so late that I had these fibroids, or what I felt like was so late, because they were already around for years by that point. But by the time by the time you find out, you just sort of hope and pray. But then even after that, you still deal with the symptoms and you think that you just have to. I mean, really, up until I happened upon USA Fibroid Centers, I was invited to a luncheon. And when I went to a dinner in, if that's a word, but I was invited to a dinner. And that's where I got all this information. And it was the first time that I was even hearing about this procedure. And I think that was enlightening, but it also made me a little mad too, because it was the first time I was hearing about it. I felt like the doctors beforehand had done me a disservice because they told me about these very aggressive procedures that they were familiar with and wanted me to undergo. And they did not ever mention that UFE was a possibility. And once I discovered that and started, really just investigating it more, talking to Dr. Shiloh, he was so great with me. I was texting him all these questions and all these stats that I found. I felt a lot more comfortable. But you're right at the beginning, Kim, it was really, it was a devastating feeling, just to feel as a woman in general. Like you worry about your health, but you really do think about your fertility and also having children.
And this is the reason why we developed this platform, so that we can actually encourage women to talk about fibroids, the symptoms, the pains, the outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
also raise awareness for this minimally invasive procedure
Yeah.
at the USA Fibroid Center. So I definitely am so glad that this is a safe space for women to be able to have these conversations. Many people have asked on the chat, why is it that doctors don't tell us, and why is it that we find out so late? I don't have the answer for that. And I know, Dr. Shiloh, you're on the
He does.
of the spectrum, because you're actually helping to remedy this issue when you're not keeping the information away from patients. But I do want to ask, why do you think that doctors don't mention all of the options that women have, so that we can alleviate some of this fear and anger that women seem to feel when they're diagnosed with this fibrosis?
Well, You know, that's a tough question. I mean, I have my opinion, and I'm happy to voice it because it's a frustrating thing for us as well, which is again speaks to how important it is for us to talk about these problems, raise awareness, all the options. You know, fibroid embolization, you know, is not for every single solitary patient, and so I can't say that it is. All right, it is for many, many patients though, and the reality is that the reason it's not discussed more frequently is that the gatekeeper women's health or the gynecologists. And the gynecologists have 2 or 3 procedures in their hands, which is the myomectomy, either the removal of the fibroid through the abdomen, which is a surgery through the abdomen, or through the vagina, or the hysterectomy, which is offered far too quickly. You know, there are 500,000 hysterectomies done in the United States every single year. Okay. Fibroid disease afflicts 50 to 70% of Black and African American women. Most hysterectomies are fibroids. So if you do the math, you can quickly figure out who's getting their uteruses taken out in this country on a daily basis. Okay. So the problem is that the gynecologists don't offer this procedure. And so I always tell patients, if you go to McDonald's, you can get a Big Mac and you can get a quarter pounder with cheese, but you can't get a Whopper, because that, no matter how delicious the Burger King Whopper is, they're not going to sell to you there. And as sad as that is, I have a couple, very few forward-thinking gynecologists in my area who refer patients to me, but the vast majority don't. And many patients only hear about us through Instagram or Google or other ways. And they come to us wondering why they were not told about this by anybody else. I've had many patients come to me a week, a month away from having their uterus taken out, and they just found somebody else to talk to. And again, if it's not appropriate for them, it's not appropriate for them. But the other analogy is that 30 years ago, if you had heart disease, you would have a quadruple bypass surgery. Many of us know relatives who had triple bypass, quadruple bypass. That's all you ever heard. However, now most heart disease is fixed through an artery in the wrist or an artery in the leg by angioplasty and stenting. Only a small subset of people need that open heart surgery. This is a very similar thing. Most women with fibroids can be treated with a minimally invasive procedure through the wrist or the leg that they can recover from in a few days, instead of a hysterectomy, which takes out a very important organ and takes 2 months to recover. So sadly, there are unfortunately some deep-rooted issues in our medical profession that are forcing the doctors to not recommend something that's less invasive and can achieve the same outcome. And I'll say this procedure is the single most studied medical or surgical procedure of all time. It's not new. It's been around since 1995. Okay, we're talking about 27 years now. Can't say it's some new thing. It's not. And the fact of the matter is it's been studied against hysterectomy, which is the quote unquote standard of care. So in fact, many procedures have never been evaluated for their efficacy. There are a lot of them. This one has been studied again and again and again, and it's shown to be more just as effective and less morbid, with less complications, less long-term problems. And yet, to your point, it's not recommended. So unfortunately, there are some not so great reasons why it's not recommended, but I hope that as we continue to speak to this problem, as Kim, yourself, and Elsa, and other women who are ambassadors can go out there and tell others about what's going on, I think we can continue to raise awareness of this less invasive approach, and women not have to lose their uterus, which has a lot of consequences. There's studies that show that an increased risk of heart disease. There's studies that show there's an increased risk of breast cancer if you have your uterus removed. There are other long-term pelvic complications from hysterectomy. So, you know, these are very important things. And this is the kind of thing I tell a lot of women when I sit and talk to them face to face, just so they're educated. They're still allowed to make their own decision. I don't stop anyone from going on and having a hysterectomy or myomectomy. If that's what's right for them, that's what's right for them. But they at least deserve to hear all the information and then make an appropriate decision.
And can I just piggyback off of that real quick, is that my doctor, whom I love, she delivered my child. But when I asked her, she said, you know, you can get a hysterectomy. You're done with having children, right? I was like, well, I don't know. I think so. And I asked her, I said, is this medically necessary? If it's medically necessary, I'll entertain it. But is it medically necessary? And she hesitated. And when she hesitated, she said, well, we could do the myomectomy instead. And I remember thinking, like, why was the most aggressive treatment suggested to me at 38 years old? At 38 years old, I don't know what the future holds. I think I'm done with kids. I'm pretty exhausted. The one is keeping me busy, but who knows? You know, and it was like, you want me to make this decision because hypothetically I could be done, but it was such a drastic option to present first. What
Absolutely.
I would have appreciated was that it could be UFE, it could be the myomectomy, it could be the hysterectomy. Let's talk about the pros and cons of all of them. But the UFE was never, ever presented. It was immediately an aggressive surgery that was presented.
And I want to just backpedal a little bit because I think that this is an important conversation with over 80% of African American women having fibroids. Dr. Shiloh, tell us in brief exactly what a fibroid tumor is. If you could just let people know, because I think, you know, with so many people having fibroids, why don't we know what they are? I heard Elsa say she didn't even know what they were when she was diagnosed with them. She was like, what? I have what? You know, and I think that that's so unfortunate. Tell us, can you describe for us what a fibroid is? Because I don't want to assume that everyone that's watching is a.
Well, okay, I'm happy to do that. So the technical term for a fibroid is a leiomyoma, okay, and other people call them myomas, but leiomyoma. And what that is that it's a smooth muscle tumor of the muscular layer of the uterus. The uterus is really very complex structure, but it's made of a muscle. The main element of it is a muscle. And there's different types of muscles, but the muscle is a smooth muscle cell. And in people with fibroids, for some reason, there's clear-cut genetic predisposition to it. There is a genetic abnormality that creates these smooth muscle tumors. They're not malignant, not cancers. They don't metastasize, so they don't spread in that way. There are very, very small, and there's one of the things that we think about and evaluate, small subset of leiomyomas or fibroids that can turn into cancers called leiomyosarcomas. However, the vast majority of them are myomas, which are fibroids, benign, non-cancerous, smooth muscle tumors in the inner layer of the uterus. Now, within that, there are subtypes of fibroids, which are then determined by the location of the fibroids. So as far as fibroids are concerned, I tell people it's like real estate. Location, location, location. So depending upon where the fibroid is located inside your uterus will determine the type of symptoms that you have. When it's underneath the inner lining of the uterus, known as the mucosa, it causes severe heavy bleeding. You could have a 1 centimeter fibroid, relatively small, the size of a grape, underneath the inner lining of the uterus and have bleeding. You can have a 10 centimeter fibroid, 10 times that size, not touching the inner lining of the uterus, but sitting on top of in the front of the uterus, and it won't cause heavy bleeding at all, but it will cause the woman to pee all the time. I mean, every day I talk to women who pee 4 times an hour or wake up 5 times at night to pee. Why? Because the fibroid is outside of the uterus, essentially pushing down on their bladder, preventing it from enlarging, from filling properly, and thus it goes only a quarter way and then they pee, a quarter way and then they pee. So so there's 3 types of fibroids: submucosal, which causes heavy bleeding; intramural, just inside the muscular layer of the uterus; and then finally subserosal, outside of basically towards the outside of the uterus. And then those cause like the bulky symptoms: pressure on the bladder, pressure on the colon, lower back pain, the feeling of bloating or the fullness from the side of fibroids. So to summarize, in I guess it was a long-winded way, the fibroids are a benign smooth muscle tumor, and depending upon where it's located, we define them as submucosal, intramural, submucosal, and those different types of fibroids cause the various types of symptoms that women have. And that's what I'm looking at, and that's what I'm thinking about when I'm evaluating the person's ultrasound or their MRI or both.
Let me tell you something. Elsa, do you feel the way I feel? I had no idea it was even about location, and I've been a fibroid, ambassador for
The only reason that I know is because Dr. Shiloh showed me mine, and I think I had all. I think I had a buffet of fibroid.
that was such, oh my God, Dr. Shiloh, that was so rich. It was worth the price of the ticket, okay? Incredible how you just explained that. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like when I had fibroids, that I had all of them. Could that be possible? Because every single thing that you named, I feel like I had.
many times we see, and then, you know, without speaking specifically about Elsa's care, I mean, many women have all three types of fibroids. I see that every single day. And to her point, I like to show women when I can their ultrasound or their MRI, because a lot of times I find that not that women are telling other people, I have this symptom, I have that symptom, I have this symptom, and they can't really find a way to correlate. Like, why are you peeing all the time? I hear every day, oh, I drink a lot of water. I say, well, maybe, but I drink a lot of water too, and I don't pee every 5 minutes.
Right, yeah.
This fibroid just compressing their bladder, and you can clearly see that. Explain to them, this is what you're feeling, why you're having constipation, why you feel this lump right under your belly button, and you can clearly show to them. And I find that to be one of the most powerful things I can do, is to demonstrate with our imaging, to see on the inside and demonstrate to our patients exactly what they're experiencing and why. And because very few doctors, I feel, even think about that. And you know, I find that the more they understand, the more Elsa understood and others, the more clarity they have about their problem, and the more it makes sense, all the things they felt they've had. And then to say to them, look, you're going to feel so much better in 3 or 6 months when we repeat the life questionnaire, and all those 5s are going to be 1s and 2s. You know, it's I mean, for me, honestly, when I see follow-up patients, or when I talk to Elsa and see follow-up patients and they tell me how wonderful they're doing, it honestly, you know, my day started like that today. My whole day is better. And you know, it's so gratifying to find that after hearing all these problems on a regular basis.
So, Dr. Shiloh, I hate to, you know, to ask this question, but it's really a pertinent one. Do the fibroids back? Because how wonderful this procedure is, and I know how great Elsa is telling us how she's recovering, but do they come back?
The answer to your question is they can come back. And, you know, it's not, and I tell every patient the same thing. I want you to understand that I'm transparent and will tell you the truth. You know, we don't know, you know, Elsa's 41, what else going to happen exactly to her in 10 years. I can't predict that. God knows, if I could, then I'm sure I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere having wagered on all kinds of things. But the truth is that, you know, we treat what we can at that moment. All the fibroids that she had and all the fibroids that every woman that I treat are dead the moment they get off that table. They're dead. And those fibroids typically are not the ones that recur. Are you going to regrow fibroids? That's a great question. It's possible that you will. Now, the question always is will that make you symptomatic? Because you don't wake up one day, like to Elsa's point, you don't wake up one day with a big giant fibroid. That fibroid was there for many, many years. It takes a long time for it to grow from a pinhead, like how, let's imagine it as a pin, to a big grapefruit or something of that size, because it doesn't, they just take a while. So even if you started forming fibroids the day after the procedure, still take a long time typically for you to become symptomatic. And we don't even know if that's going to happen. And then even under those circumstances, the procedure can be repeated again in the future. I wouldn't say again and again. In my career, I've had a handful of repeat UFEs, rarely on my own patients, but in general, you can repeat it if it were to come back. If you were 45, 46, 47, it's unlikely that after a UFE you'll ever have symptoms again or problems from them again. If you're in your mid to late 30s, I can't promise you that in 10 to 15 years, you're not going to have a problem. And, you know, at the end of the day, honesty is the best policy. It may be that it'll come back again. The odds are it will not bother you again. But if it does, we'll probably have another solution for you at that time anyway.
I love
And Kim, I asked him that question as well before I got mine. And that was one of the reasons that I decided to do it, was because fibroids, of course, grow off of estrogen. It increases in your childbearing years. It tapers off when you get into menopause. So for a while, I was thinking I just need to, like, you know, just deal with it for the next 10, 15 years of my life, and hopefully can get there, and then they'll start to shrink up. But I remember thinking when he told me that, yes, they could come back. Even with that, I would rather have UFE for me, because if I had a myomectomy, they could come back that way too. And that was an aggressive surgery in which the same result could have happened.
Yeah, yeah. I want you to talk to us a little bit about and walk through this procedure and how you fared through it. I know that you had one of the best in the business perform your surgery. Walk us through the process, because I think women, there are about 5 women on here right now who have already scheduled a hysterectomy, and they are commenting as we're. I don't know if you got
Mhm.
the comment. Literally, I have to stop and say, I need you all to hear her process. Okay,
Mhm.
I need you all perhaps to unschedule that appointment and get a second opinion.
Yeah,
A second opinion.
at least that.
I want you
Yeah.
talk and walk through this procedure with them so that they can actually hear it from a live person, how you actually made it through this.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I initially came into contact with USA Fibroid Centers again at a dinner, and so I got a lot of information there. But I'm a journalist, so of course we're gonna dig deeper and look at everything for ourselves. So I did a lot of that, and once I felt good about it, I reached out to USA Fibroid Centers, Dr. Yaz, and he put me in touch with Dr. Shiloh. Now, I live in the DC Baltimore area, and the next closest USA Fibroid Center was in Philly or outside of Philly. Um, but after talking to Dr. Shiloh and him answering all of my questions, I orchestrated it with my girlfriends. I got a ride there, someone that was there with me, and then I came back. So the day of, um, and correct me if I'm wrong now, because when you feel good after you get a procedure, you forget about all the little details that went into it because you're on the other side of it. Um, but I remember arriving, and even the actual center itself was smaller than what I thought it would be. I love the location because the location is actually in several locations. They make sure that they put USA Fibroid Centers in locations where Black women have access, just to make sure that they are in our communities because we are most affected. So I really appreciated that. Everyone was very kind. They take your vitals and all of that. They gave me a sedative. It was a sedative, right? Is that correct?
Um,
It was like I felt sleepy,
kind of
so
sedate.
it gave me something.
We are definitely. So we give the patient and I, nurses there. We have an anesthesiologist there. The anesthesiologist and I work together very closely.
Yeah,
He or she sedates the patient, not with a breathing tube, just
no,
enough that they don't care what's going on, and then I get to perform the procedure. So the patient can be relaxed and everybody else can be relaxed, and the procedure
yeah.
takes 30 minutes to an hour depending on certain factors that are involved, and so that she had her procedure. I guess back to the holding area or waiting area.
Exactly. And so they took me there, and the reason I don't remember is because I went to sleep. If you look, and I don't know if you can see this, you probably can't, but right there, do you see that little dot? That's all I have. That's my whole procedure. They went in right through my wrist, through my veins, down, and then, cut off the blood flow to the fibroids. Um, there is some pain and cramping afterwards. So Dr. Shiloh was very transparent with that. It basically feels like I wouldn't say period cramps because they're more intense than that, but less than labor cramps. So you're gonna feel like that. At least I did for about a week or so. And that's basically, the fibroids are mad. Their blood supply is being cut off. They're dying. And even with the pain, I was a little happy. I was like, good, die, fibroids, die. Like I wanted them gone. And I will say for me, and some people are longer or shorter, but for me, by the end of that week, I knew I was feeling better. I was on to something. By 90 days out, my cycle was like, I guess, what everyone else had been experiencing as a normal cycle. And I just remember thinking, my God, I had suffered with this for so long.
Yes,
And within 90 days, it's done.
I'm just curious to hear about your cycle. Because people are asking questions as you're. I don't want to stop you. I just want to make
No, yeah.
this good information. Actually, have a fibroid, UFE patient in our
Mhm.
holding. So um, tell us, how your periods were after that. Were they, just describe
Sure.
and from that point.
Yeah. I mean, periods still suck. No one wants them, but they're not painful anymore. That's the thing, is that I don't have pain. I might have some bloating. I might have some cramps, things that but it's manageable. I go about my day. I'm still a great mom. I can host my show. I can go shopping. It's not anything like it was before, where I literally, on my first day of my cycle, I would try to avoid, you know, going shopping or being out with my girlfriends. I remember, in fact, I had a story and my producer wanted to send me, it was somewhere in nature. And I remember telling her that was the first time I had to confess to a colleague that, look, I can't do this until maybe the next day or a different time of the month. Because if I'm out, you know, shooting this thing for 2 hours and I'm in nature and I can't get to a bathroom, that's going to be a problem. And to be a grown woman and have to say that, or to, you know, be working and have your cycle actually impair your work, that's a problem. And now it's not even a thought. It's not, I mean, I used to plan everything around my cycle. Now it's like, oh, it's here. And you deal with it and you go about your day. And it is the most freeing thing. I tell everybody about it.
That's amazing. And I'm so glad
Yeah.
are creating that space for awareness, because I think that that actually helps to alleviate some of the fear that women have, because to be told that you have two options, which is myomectomy and hysterectomy, and never be told about UFE. You know, people, I've heard so many people say, know your options, but if you don't even know that there is another option, you know, unfortunately, you know, you just don't know. And I'm so glad you came to that dinner, right?
Mhm.
And you got that information, and I'm sure it was eye-opening for you, because you're like, wait a minute now, I've been given two options. I didn't know I had a third one.
That's exactly it. And my mother had a hysterectomy when I was 12. And when I was 12 and she had the hysterectomy, I remember her coming home and my dad and I, my little sister, you know, helping her through that time. It was around my 8th grade graduation and we didn't know she was going to be able to get to the 8th grade graduation. It was an ordeal. So when a doctor says that very passively, like, hey, we can give you a hysterectomy, I already had, you know, a very acute story that I remember in my life, and how my mom had to undergo that, and it was a very big deal for her. So it wasn't something that should just be flippantly suggested, especially if it isn't medically necessary. Sometimes it is. For my mother, it was medically necessary, but a lot of times it really is not.
And not to get too far into your family business, but I think that
That's okay. They know I talk.
family history matters when it comes to this this disease. And was your mother's hysterectomy a result of fibroids, or you?
No, so my mother and my aunt both had endometriosis, and they're open with talking about this, so that's not a secret. I did not have endometriosis, but I had fibroids. So there's been women's health issues within on my mom's side of the family. Um, and so that's something, even with my 8-year-old, she is aware. She knows, she can see the difference in her mother pre and post UFE. And she has a mom now who has energy to be running after her, who's not laying down and fatigued, who will take her to the park and do all the fun things, when she remembers just a year ago, you know, she'd have to plan around that.
And that is just, you know, so many mothers don't have these kind of conversations, or even expose their daughters, you know,
Yeah.
some of the disparities that we endure, you know, as African American women. So I'm really thankful that your mom, you know, was able to kind of talk to you. It wasn't like it was, you know, completely out of your, you know,
Right. Yes,
your
I am thankful for that too, because these are the conversations that you need to have, and you have to, you know, you got to teach your daughters and your granddaughters so that they, again, they know what it is. Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
That are just jumping on, we have some really amazing guests here. Welcome to the USA Fibroid Center's page. I always do this, you know, kind of mid to end through, because some people jump on and off, but we do have Dr. Shiloh, Dr. UFE with us to talk to us a little bit about the UFE procedure, which is the uterine fibroid embolization procedure, one of the 3 options that are given to women who have fibroid disease. And then we also have our very own fibroid survivor who has gone through the UFE procedure and has had great success with it. part of the USA Fibroid Center's family. And so we are having this conversation, this talk about you conversation, very important conversation. If you do have questions about fibroids, if you're wondering if you have fibroids, if you're not sure about UFE, you just jumped on, you're like, I didn't hear the whole conversation, I don't have time to go back and watch the replay, call the number at the bottom of the screen, the 833-609-1100. I apologize. I was typing so fast. I did have a typo initially, but it is correct now. So make sure and if you do have questions, I think it's very important that you get these telehealth, have this telehealth conversation. Some of you are concerned about insurances. That is a question that we can answer. Once you call in, you're saying that we may not take your insurance. Listen, call, make the call, make it work, make it happen for you, because I do know that the UFE procedure can really help to save your life. One of ambassadors who is on right now, she is commenting, Coach Ella, she had the myomectomy procedure and almost died. And so I don't scare anybody, but it is, you know, everybody's different. And I want people to understand that your symptoms and your diagnosis and your conversation with your doctor is your diagnosis. You know, a lot of people are asking, you know, if I have fibroids, can I have children? If, you know, I come in, are they going to come back? Everything is very specific. Dr. Shiloh, as we close out, and I do have one or two more questions for you all, tell them how important it is to understand that, you know, what happened with Elsa might not be their story. Please explain, or just kind of share that, if you don't mind.
Right. I mean, obviously, I pride myself on providing personalized care, and, you know, I do this the same. I try to treat everybody 100% the same. Everybody gets my cell phone number. I communicate with everybody. Some people use it, some people don't, and that's fine. But every person is different. I was just having this conversation with a couple fibroid patients today. I don't even believe fibroid disease is one disease. There are, we lump it in together, but one patient has one big fibroid, you know, the size of a grapefruit. There are women who have 3 of those plus 50 little ones. There are women who just have a bunch of little ones. There are women who only have one tiny one, and then they all kind of behave a little bit differently. And also, in one case, it's a 35-year-old lady. In another case, it's a 50-year-old lady. So the behavior is different. To that point, you know, the discussions that you have with your doctor are very personalized. And so in some cases, we do only need an ultrasound and you're good to go. Other times we feel a need to do a biopsy to make sure you don't have cancer. Sometimes we have to get an MRI to see things a little bit better, to delineate that. Some women have another disease problem, fibroids, known as adenomyosis, which is kind of like a cousin of endometriosis, that is sort of related, but the symptoms of adenomyosis and fibroid disease overlap with each other. And so in some cases, I have the need to make sure you don't have with problems, because if you have adenomyosis and fibroid disease, I treat you a little bit differently. That technically the procedure is done differently. If you only have adenomyosis, the procedure is done slightly differently. So the point that you make is a good one, is a very good one, is that these conversations about fertility, about will they come back, you know, are all dependent upon the individual person's specific fibroid disease, their age, their other medical problems, and multiple other factors. And that's something that would occur if you met with me or one of the other doctors on a one-on-one basis, whether it's in person or whether it's through a telemedicine visit, which would be occurring just like this, me talking to you and getting all the information. I now work also occasionally in Chicago, which maybe also doesn't know, but I go to Chicago once or twice a month, do procedures there. And so most of my visits are done via telemedicine, and I meet people oftentimes in the first time when I'm there for the appointment. And so, you know, these are conversations that are very important to have. I encourage every woman to write down all these questions they have, be prepared for consultation. It's very easy to get, you know, overwhelmed in that moment and then forget. I also, again, speaking for myself, like now what I do after every consult is I send an email to every patient with a summary of what we discussed, and then they also have my email. Thus, they can contact me with any questions, because very easy to forget a question in that moment that you really wanted to ask, and then you can ask it again. But again, in a very long-winded way, each patient is very special, individualized, and we can't answer questions about people without knowing the specifics of their disease. And that's what I do. That's what we do. And that's how we come up with the appropriate plan of action for each person.
Thank you so much for that information. And I do have a challenge, and I want Elsa to answer this challenge. Elsa, you are a voice to the masses. So you can disseminate messages so quickly from your platform. But how is it that the rest of us can be able to share this message of awareness with our circle of friends and family?
I think, paying attention to what women don't say sometimes, paying attention to, your girlfriend that just looks uncomfortable, or seems like something's asking them. I feel like a lot of times, especially us as Black women, we are used to carrying a lot of weight on our shoulders. And so we don't want to complain about anything. We don't want to complain if we are tired or if we're in pain. And we normalize pain. And I think with many of us dealing with fibroids, we have normalized that pain. So I think, having those conversations is a good starting point. And honestly, not even waiting. I tell everybody about this procedure. I don't even wait anymore. I don't ask if they're in pain. I just tell them because I'm so thankful. Again, I was invited to that dinner because I was a part of the media and they wanted to share, the word about fibroid. But when I went, I didn't even know I was going to be learning about this procedure. I just knew I was going to hear about fibroids. And I was like, okay, I got them. I might as well go, And I went there and it was, again, life changing. And if that moment back in, gosh, it was this time last year, Dr. Shiloh, it
Yeah.
was last April, because I found out in April. I did all my research in April and I had that procedure in May. I was not waiting. I was so excited about it. Yeah. And I
Congratulations.
told, thank you. I jumped on it. I am so happy. It's a year later. And I talk about it nonstop. So thank you guys for giving me another platform in which I can talk about it. But I think that that's really it is, talk about it with your girlfriends, talk about it at church, talk about it at work, and be open to asking those questions because we don't know. It's not out there. We're not getting that information. Our doctors are not telling us. And we have to be the one to be agents of change for that so that we can take control over our health collectively and individually.
Absolutely. And I am with you. I do believe that awareness affects change. I do think that once
Hmm.
at that point now we can make decisions. It's only when we
Yeah.
know that we sometimes can make, irrational decisions because we just don't have the information. Shiloh, what are some of your closing remarks and some advice that you can give women who are watching about how we can spread awareness about fibroids?
I mean, first of all, again, I started out with this. I want to say it again that I think there's a tremendous value, Kim, to what the other ambassadors are doing. I certainly thank Elsa for sharing her because it's very powerful. Something Elsa told me um, a few months ago is something I hope she's okay with it. I share with some people that, and I don't mention her by name, the fact that you can, that women go through this thing that you mentioned where you plan your whole life around this period and worry
Mhm.
about having a bathroom nearby because you're afraid that something's going to happen is something that us as men don't really have to think about on a regular basis. But it's so impactful to hear about that. And when you told me, Elsa, that you were at a homecoming event or something like that, and you realized at the end of the
Yeah.
weekend that you didn't have to once that whole weekend about, oh my God, where's the nearest bathroom? I mean, it's such a simple thing, but it's so powerful to me that you spend an entire weekend not having to mentally focus on something. And the thought of that was so powerful to me that it really, that really actually impacted me. And I realized how much it really does affect your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And I share that story with people, but I do want people, women to understand they have to suffer in silence. They are advocates for you out there. I mean, we have our team here. I'm also just part of the team. I have a wonderful group of assistants, my fibroid team of women who help. I call them, I actually think they're navigators. They help women navigate the process. I mean, I may be
Mhm.
the end result here, but in the beginning, there's a lot of other people who are involved in USA Fibroid Centers. So we have a tremendous group of people who help from the moment you make the call to a year later, you're doing great. There's a lot of people who are involved, and just don't suffer in silence. Be your own best advocate. Advocate for
Yeah.
yourself, for your friends, and just make the phone call either to us or just get help, because help is there for you. You don't have to suffer like this anymore. And if it's me, I would love to help you. I'd be honored. But if it's one of my other doctor colleagues, that would be great too.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. I really don't know what to say after that. I mean, you've been so informative and so welcoming to those. You've been such a help to many. And we just want to thank you, Dr. Shiloh, for all that you do and for efforts and all of your research and everything that you have taken the time with all of these women that you've been able to help through. We just appreciate you. We just appreciate you. Words cannot express. Elsa, we thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's a very intimate one, but one that you were so gracious to be able to share with our viewers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. And like you, ladies, I ask everybody. I talk about you. I talk about everything that deals with this uterus with my friends. I'm telling you, everyone of us that still has a period, I say, do you have fibroids? Do you have fibroids? As soon as they any mention of a menstrual, I'm saying, good. Do you have fibroids, or do you think you have them? Because if you do, I definitely have some answers for you. And I think that that's just all it takes. I mean, if you got that boldness, like, just talk about it. And I do know that you're going to help to save someone's life. Listen, this ends our tonight with the Talk About You Fibroid Centers platform. I want to thank each of you for watching tonight. And if you're coming on later on and you watch this broadcast later, we appreciate you as well. And you can call the number at the bottom of the screen, the 833-609-1100 number. And I promise you, we do have some answers and we do have some solutions. So thank you so much to all of you, and good night. Good night.
Thanks so much.